I'm starting graduate school, and in about 2.5 years, I will be able to take the test to become a licensed therapist. So, yay. And I have all of my textbooks, which I am yet to open because I just received them. And I figured I could do a dual unboxing from them and reading from one of them once I'm done unboxing all of them. So, let's get started on that. Okay, so the box containing the first couple of books has already been opened because I got this box last week. But these two books are for my class, Theories of MFT Practices, Part 1. And it's a 3-quarter course. So 3 psychoanalysis, neo-analytic approaches, so individual psychology, person-centered, existential therapy, behavior therapy. I'm trying to list the things that might be easier for people who are not, like, I don't know if people who are not in the field will understand what, like, Gestalt theory is. Feminist, cognitive, narrative, all these different types of therapy, so makes sense. Now let's open the big boxes. Sorry about that. I realized by cutting I'm taking some of the fun out of the unboxing video, but I'm pretty sure you guys didn't want to watch me struggle for like 5 minutes on that last part. So let's open this if we can and find out which book is inside this box. Envisioning family therapy. So this is for another class called the family life cycle, which, let's see how they describe it. It illuminates how racism, sexism, and other forms of oppression constrain the lives of diverse clients and family therapy itself. So, race, culture, and gender in clinical practice. So, talking about, again, about family therapy, but largely about intersectionality within family therapy. So, interesting. It's one of 2 books for that class. So, I guess the other book in this box, unless I am missing a book, because I have one more book for this class, and then one book for my other class. Let's hope they are both in this box. Huh, there's a pull tab. This one would be easier, albeit quite likely louder. That's not very helpful. clearly I'm not very good at opening things. There we go. Okay, let's see what's in here. Yay! There are 2 books, which means that I have all 3 books now. Hooray! Okay, so let's see. This is the other book for my family life cycle class, the expanded family life cycle. This has the same chart that I was going to read to you guys from my family therapy book. So that's probably why they suggest you take these 2 classes at the same time, because there is obviously some interconnection there between the theories of MFT practice and the family life cycle. So, individual, family, and social perspectives. So, let's start from, here we go. Perspectives on the evolving family life cycle, self and context, women, men, social class, life cycle of the African American families living in poverty, sexuality, LGBT, spirituality, siblings, single adults, becoming an adult, becoming a couple, becoming parents, transformation during adolescence, midlife, later in life, death, divorce, single parents, migration, illness, alcohol, violence, psychiatric illness, coaching, rituals. Wow, okay. I guess that's why these are intro classes, because they cover so much. I know later on there are specific classes like this covers sexuality and LGBT, and I know there are separate classes that delve into more depth, but like this is just a quarter-long class, so each of these classes meets once a week from now until December, so that's like October, November, that's 3 months, yeah. That's not all that much time to cover so much information, but yeah, kind of incredible. And then for a class that is very different, theories and practices in community mental health. So community mental health is the field of working with nonprofits, social work, pretty much any organization that is publicly funded counts as community mental health. So, let's see, a lot of homeless shelters and rehab facilities are publicly funded, and a lot of, like, for example, there's a huge intersecting population between people who are homeless and people with mental illness, so a lot of homeless shelters will provide, you know, either things from medication to therapy to whatever for people who may have mental illness. There are clinics for people who have mental illness but may have trouble affording things. Also foster care, that's another thing that falls under community mental health. A lot of services that help people who are within the prison system or see victims of things like domestic violence, all that sort of thing. So it's really interesting stuff. A lot of the stuff so community mental health is pretty much anything that's not private practice. It's publicly funded, it oftentimes nonprofit, versus private practice is more what you think of the therapist who sits there with their client lying on the couch telling them about how their day was. That's going to be private practice. This is going to be more still working with clients, still to a certain extent one-on-one, but it's going to be a very different group of people, I guess. So, yeah, those are all of my textbooks for all these classes. And I'm going to show you, make sure that these charts are actually the same, because, I mean, I see no reason why they wouldn't be, because it's basically the same theory. Yep. Basically, yeah. A little bit of the wording is different, but chart shows stages of the family life. Alright, so this is the chart that I wanted to show you guys, called the stages of the family life cycle. And it shows you, the different stages of a person's life in relation to their family, and then the emotional process of transition, and then some second order changes within the family and the person that I guess I don't know, this related changes, I guess. I'll explain it a little bit better as we go along. But so the first stage is leaving home, single young adults. So let's come up with a name for a person so we have an idea. And this is all going to be completely, heteronormative, but the way this is written out, it doesn't really specify. And this is all, again, a typical family cycle, people get married and have kids, and then their kids have kids and take care of the kids and then take care of the, very typical, but whatever. So let's say single young adult leaves home. Bob needs to learn to accept emotional and financial responsibility for himself. So Bob needs to go get a job. He needs to be able to take care of himself. Let's say he moves to New York and finds a nice little apartment and gets work in business or something like that. And so now not only does he have a job where he can pay for his food and his rent and all that stuff, but he also needs to be able to be emotionally responsible for himself. So when he burns his waffles in the morning or stubs his toe, he can't go crying to his mom or dad anymore. He has to be able to take care of himself. And this includes differentiation of self in relation to family of origin. So he needs his own identity, his own ideas. He can't just, want to take over the family business, I mean, I guess in some stages of the world that's a thing, but this is assuming he has left home and is independent. He can't just want to, you know, be exactly like his dad, or he can't really aspire to live with his family for the rest of his life because he's already left home, you know. Development of intimate peer relationships. So he needs to have his own friends. He can't just, you know, do everything he wants to do with his parents or his brother and sister. Establishment of self in respect to work and financial independence. So he needs to have an idea of who he is in relation to his work. He can't just pick up the next job that hires him and expect that that will keep him satisfied. And I guess in this example, Bob decided to go into business. Maybe he has lots of ideas. Maybe he wants to be an entrepreneur. Maybe, whatever reason, he has a reason why he likes to do what he does. And, you know, the financial independence, means of making money, etc., etc. Joining of families through marriage, the new couple. So, Bob gets married to, I don't know, Bobette. I'm horrible with inventing names on the spot, but Bob and Bobette are now committed to a new system. They're going to be living together in, let's say they find a house in the outskirts of New York, in a little, you know, happy little suburb. Formation of marital system. They have an idea of how their relationship is, how, a lot of the times this stuff gets decided before a couple gets married nowadays, but I think this, you know, accounts for, old times when people would get married before moving in together, or, you know, arranged marriage, I guess, kind of fits into this as well, but realignment of relationships with extended family and friends to include spouse. So, whose house do they go to for Thanksgiving? Or, you know, when Bob wants to spend a night on the town with his friends, does Bobette come with them? Etc., etc., etc. Does a spouse get included in all these little things or not? And, okay, next, families with young children. So, Bob and Bobette have a kid. Oh god, I can't name them all. Variations of Bob. I don't know, little baby Robbie. And, see, I told you I'm horrible. Accepting new members into the system. So, yeah, accepting little baby Robbie, whether little baby Robbie was born from Bobette's womb or just adopted or whatever. Little baby Robbie needs to be accepted as part of this family. Maybe, you know, adjusting the marital system means Bob can't, you know, go to happy hour with his friends every night after work, or, you know, Bobette can't, they can't, just leave for an entire weekend and take trips to Vegas or whatever on a moment's notice. Joining in child-rearing, financial, and household tasks. So, who takes care of baby Robbie? Who drops him off to school? Who is going to teach him to walk and talk? Who's going to clean up after him? So, like, household tasks. Who's going to cook and clean and fix things? And who's going to be making more money for them? Next, families with adolescents. Increasing flexibility, family boundaries to permit children's independence. So, baby Robbie, not really baby anymore, wants a lock on his door. Robbie wants to be able to stay out late and stuff. And grandparents' frailties. So grandparents are growing old. And speaking of grandparents, I skipped a thing over here. Realignment of relationships with extended family to include parenting and grandparenting roles. So generally, yeah, this is when grandparents become more of a thing, is when the kids start happening, because, Bob and Bobette have never had a kid before, so they have no idea what to do with baby Robbie. So whether the grandparents are going to be taking care of baby Robbie when the parents want to go out, or whether the grandparents are just there for, over the phone advice, or whether they spoil a kid, or if they're not present at all, they need to figure out what that position's going to be. So by the time baby Robbie is no longer a baby, he's, teenager Robbie, grandparents are getting old. So they need to figure out what to do about that. Are they going to put the grandparents in the home? Are they going to have the grandparents move in with them? Are they going to, maybe move the grandparents closer to where they live to make it easier to take care of them? So shifting of parent-child relationships to permit adolescents to move into and out of system. So Robbie is now dating someone, maybe? We haven't gotten to this part in my class, so I don't really know exactly what this fully consists of, but basically, Robbie has his own friends and people outside of his direct family. Maybe Robbie goes off to college, refocus on midlife, marital, and career issues. Maybe if Bobette was a stay-at-home mother, maybe she wants to go back to school or get a new job, or maybe Bob has decided after so many years and making so much money in business that he wants to become a writer and stay at home and write that novel that he's been thinking about working on for years and years and years, Beginning shift towards caring for older generations, so figuring out what they want to do about the grandparents. Again, do you want to put them in a home, or are you going to take them in and take care of them? Because now you no longer have to really look over Robbie as much. To an extent, yes, but Robbie is a little more self-sufficient than he was when he was in diapers. So, next is launching children and moving on. Accepting a multitude of exits from and entries into the family system. So, Robbie gets a job. He, graduates from college, decides he wants to be a therapist, gets a job, moves out, and he gets married to, let's see, just to mix things up, let's say Robbie gets married to Steve, because why not? Renegotiation of marital system as a dyad. So now Bob and Bobette are just Bob and Bobette. For the first time in 18 to 20 plus years, they do not have to do everything through formerly baby Robbie anymore. So now they need to figure out what that means for them. What does that mean for their relationship? And such like. Development of adult-to-adult relationships. So, again, they're now working on the relationship with themselves, and, who are their friends going to be? Who are they going to spend their social time with? Coworkers? Maybe meet up with old friends, make new friends, take up some hobbies, realignment of relationships to include in-laws and grandchildren. So, Steve's family and Robbie's family need to meet when Steve and Robbie maybe adopt a kid or something, or however they decide to do that. They need to, Bob and Bobette need to figure out their role in that. Dealing with disabilities and death of parents, grandparents. So, yeah, so Bob and Bobette's parents are at this point very, very old. If they are even still around, Bob and Bobette are dealing with the deaths of their parents, and that's really rough. So, and families later in life, accepting the shifting generational roles. So, yeah, now you're no longer really, parents with the kids. You're the grandparents now. You're, dealing with a lot of stuff. Maybe now Bob and Bobette are in a home, or maybe they've moved in with Robbie and Steve, or maybe they're still living on their own and just kind of enjoying their stuff. Maybe, Bob has started writing a lot more. Maybe Bobette has started, going out with friends a lot more, or, joined a book club or whatever. Maintaining own and or couple functioning and interests in face of physiological decline, exploration of new familiar and social role options. So, again, Bob can keep doing his writing. Bobette can enjoy, maybe Bob can't go to happy hour like he used to, but he can still write, and Bobette can still read, even though she can't, go on her morning hikes anymore. Support for more central role of middle generation. So I guess when Robbie and Steve have their kid, they can provide more support now for them, making room in the system for the wisdom and experience of the elderly, supporting the older generation without over-functioning for them. So, that support between Bob and Bobette's generation and Robbie and Steve. I'm completely losing track of all these names. Without, going too over the top, dealing with loss of spouse, siblings, and other peers in preparation for death. So, between Bob and Bobette, one of them may pass away. Bob's siblings, did I give Bob a sister or something? I don't remember. Any of Bob's siblings maybe passing away, their friends, and they're, preparing for dying themselves. So, yeah. That's a rather morose note, but it ends somewhere similar to where it begins, where, they may be ending their lives, but Robbie is just beginning his, and that is, the circle of life, I guess. Alright, thanks for sticking through this very, very long video, and I will see you guys next time.